Welcome to the Dynasty Dugout Show, a podcast covering all things minor league baseball. Get a front row seat to the action with everything you need to know about the future stars of Major League Baseball. And now, here's your host, Chris Clegg.
Today's my first day doing this full time. It's kind of been a transition the last month of leaving my full-time job to do this. So I feel like I haven't even been as consistent as I wanted to this month. And then we had the flu in our house, and I'm still recovering. I hope I don't sound bad, but dude, I don't know. I'm just dead every day. At night, I'm going to bed 10 o'clock. It's wild. My body just can't catch up. But anyway, side point. So where are we going? Nothing's really changing with the Dynasty Dugout. I mean, it's still my baby. It's still my bread and butter. Beck will still be there. Beck's hanging out with us in the chat. Beck's probably going to do some live streams with us too, which is really awesome. May bring him in here if he has some time later. We can answer some of your questions. Not sure what's going on with him today, but I'm more than open to bringing him in and chatting as well. We are looking to move the site off of Substack. Here's why. Substack is great for starting out. It was great to get writing out there, but as it grew, Substack is highly limited in what it can do. We're in the process of building a independent, full-blown Dynasty Dugout website right now, which I think is pretty exciting. It's going to have much more features. Right now, my biggest pain in the rear is having for you to have to go off to so many different avenues to get the things, to get to the trade calculator, to get to the best available sheet, to get to the rankings. You're either going to Excel or Google Sheets. But on the new site, everything will be housed right there. It is going to be awesome. It'll be a simple single login, and you'll be able to do everything right there. You'll be able to run the trade calculator. You'll be able to look at all the rankings in much better looking spreadsheets than just an Excel or Google sheet. It'll be sortable. Everything will be available on the site for you. The articles won't change. I think that this change is going to be huge for us because it's just simplicity. Simplicity is important. And when you can do everything in one spot, rather than having all these links and saying, well, you got to go here, here, and here to get my content. Substack was great when I started, but the limitations are certainly something. They take a very large portion of my earnings off the top. And now that I'm doing this full time, that matters a lot more. So that is going to be another major reason that I'm moving over to a independent website, just because the fact that I believe that we ultimately will do better by everybody. It'll be better for myself. It'll be much better for you as the reader. And I really can't wait for that. We're going to be expanding coverage. I'm going to be doing some prep coverage this week, actually. We're pretty fortunate to be in a environment and location where there is a lot of draft prep talent down here in my area. And so ultimately, I am going to be doing prep coverage. I'm going to be doing some college coverage and then the regular minor league coverage too. So this allows me to do a little more. I'll be down in Florida twice for spring training. I'll be down for a weekend, the first weekend of March. And then it'll be major league side of spring training. And then a couple weeks later, I'll be down there for minor league spring training, which will be cool at the Red Sox facility. But that's pretty close to the Twins and the Braves as well. So I'm really looking forward to being there as well, getting some insight on the minor leaguers, which is going to be awesome. I think the major league spring training is one thing, and we'll obviously have minor leaguers in major league camp. But by mid-March, when I'm down there, a lot of these guys are going to be reassigned. We're going to get some really good in-depth looks, more video, more data, all that stuff. And I'm really excited. We've got some other plans too to bring you some more coverage in season to help you potentially win your leagues. So that in itself is huge. We've got some resources that I think will help you in a tremendous way. And nothing's going to change on my part. I'll probably be producing more content, honestly. Beck and I are going to be teaming up and doing stuff every day. Just the everyday news and notes. We still have to chat a little bit more and work out more details, but we did talk about the idea. Beck has mentioned to some of you that he's going to do the 3 things to know from every minor league day, pretty much. So that will be good. We'll still do the Dynasty Digest, which will be awesome. But on days that I go to games the night before, Beck is going to do the Dynasty Digest some of those days, and I'll do live look coverage, articles that are embedded with film, like data readings, all that stuff. And I think that that'll be pretty crucial. We're going to be building out the YouTube. I hope the YouTube will just be a incredible library of resources for you, of film. I've been pretty slack on it, but I have, like, if I could show you my desktop, which I probably could, it's just littered with film. Like, it's ridiculous. So I have a lot more film to get on the YouTube that I haven't. And then obviously I'm gonna have time to be more diligent about, after every game, just being able to cut up the film immediately in post. So that in itself will be pretty big too. So pretty much everything stays the same except more coverage, which I hope that makes your membership worth it. Like, you guys are the reason that I can do this. It's not because of anybody else other than your support. So I thank you for that. And I hope that every single day I make this worth your penny. Not penny, but your couple bucks a month, your coffee per month. And I really do value that and appreciate that. It means way more than you know. It really does. So I'm going to do some new things with the studio in here. I'm hoping to bring some live guests in here, get some prospects to literally come to my house in my home studio and literally just talk the game. We'll see how that goes. But I'm working on a couple right now to get on preseason, and then we'll see. Like, obviously I've got access to Greenville right here. So hoping to be able to bring some guys like literally live and just do this thing together. I think that that'll be really cool and exciting. So I'm rambling a lot, but I think there's a lot of cool things coming. I think that my coverage is only going to get better. I think my knowledge is only going to get better. And I really believe that the Dynasty Dugout can potentially be one of the premier dynasty and prospect platforms out there. And I kind of believe that it already is, but my goal is to only make it better. So that will be huge. Spec says, I'm rambling. Everything you said has been wicked exciting. You're right. I mean, it's going to be awesome. Clegg's going to mess around and get picked up by a team. No, that's honestly not my aspirations. Like, I love being able to, choose where I live, which sounds really stupid. And I love being able to produce the content that I want to produce. And I talked to a couple of teams this off season. I had people reach out, and I'm not going to pass up those opportunities to talk to a team. I would never do that because I think building contacts is a huge part of this industry. And so I did talk to a couple teams, and I just don't desire to be away from my family 25 of the 30 nights a week, or move to a city and sit in the office all day, every day, and just run numbers. Like, that's not my desire. My desire is to produce great independent prospect and dynasty coverage that is for you guys. I hope that I've made things easy to understand. Like, we talk about data. Like, I put a lot of data into my write-ups. I hope that I make that easier for you to understand, because the game's evolving and the game's changing. And I think everything from data to live looks is critical. We can use all of that to come to really good opinions about players, to ultimately have more knowledge about who they are. And so I'm kind of pumped about that side too, just to be able to further advance. And I hope that, like, one of the goals on the new site would just be like to literally have like a reference page to say, like, hey, here's all these data points and here's what they mean. Here's why they are important. Here's benchmarks for all of them. Oh, and the coolest thing, and this may be, I don't know, like, when this is actually feasible, my goal is to have player pages for like nearly every prospect. Like, you can go to the player page, you can see their numbers, you can see the rolling charts of like contact and pretty much everything that's available to scrape, like from a StatCast standpoint. And the rumor on the street is that Double A is going to be available this year on Savant. So that means we'll have full AAA, we'll have full AA if that comes to fruition, and we'll have single A Florida State League that can all be downloaded and put into the Tableau sheet or even on the player page, which I think is pretty cool. Some of the visuals are pretty awesome that we've already made, as far as like spray charts, as rolling charts. All that will debut soon, hopefully. But I'm hoping just to get my feet under me, get a good routine and rhythm, get going with this thing, and hopefully see the Dynasty Dugout take off. This will be free every day. I'm not going to charge for the live stream. I'm not going to charge for the podcast, obviously. I think the podcast and live stream is a way to grow the platform, promote it, to see others come to see the work that we do. Because I really do believe in the content that we put out at the Dynasty Dugout. And I think that, honestly, like, I'm able to do more free stuff like this as I have more time. And so that's obviously huge. And I'm really just looking forward to it. So I think that's a lot of the new stuff that is coming, the new website, the player pages for prospects. Like, that'll be huge. I hope that, like, Nick Pollock's player pages on Pitcher List are incredible. And these will be nothing close to that. But if it gives a good picture of who the prospect is, then I'm excited about that. So I just think it's a little easier way to look at a player. Like, if we can have a little video on the player page, we can have the data, if we can have like basic stats, like those things are huge. So that will be something we're looking forward to. The customizable tables on the website will be huge for rankings. We have so many ranking sets, and I try to keep them all on one sheet. And it's hard, especially as we update throughout the season. But having them all just implanted on the site is going to be huge. And I really can't wait for that. The trade calculator to be on the site. There's a couple other things we're looking at too, which is really nice. The updated apps will be big. Like, I've got all the projections done for 15 and 20 team leagues. We'll just have to implement to be able to change that, the filter basically on the app. And then looking to be able to literally just, the best available sheet right now is a Google sheet that you have to download from Fantrax, and then you have to copy and paste. Like, it's just kind of annoying. But we're hoping, like, we have the API to Fantrax and hoping to get like CBS, where you can literally just log into your account. You can then go to your league and you can literally see who my top ranked players are in the league, which I think is pretty exciting and will be really huge. Just the ease of the reader, making everything easily accessible for you guys is so important, in my opinion. The better the work, the easier it is for you to access, the better things will be. So I can't wait for that. That's to come. Tomorrow night, I'll be over at T.L. Hanna High School. You've probably seen me hyping up Will Craddock. He's an 11th grader. It's a 2025 draft class. He's 6'4", like 200. He's a smooth shortstop with easy power. They've got 5 D1 arms. Actually, they're all South Carolina commits, which is interesting. T.L. Hanna's always been a Clemson pipeline because we're so close to Clemson, but they've kind of turned the page. So they've got a lot of guys committed to South Carolina. They have high school, and like, this maybe you don't realize, but for a high school team, they have 6 guys that are over 85 consistently, which is crazy. Like, that will be huge. I mean, they're going to be a really good team. They're 10 minutes from me. There's some other draft guys. Ty Peoples in the 2025 class. He's a first rounder, most likely, from people I've talked to. He's close by. I'm going to see PJ Morlando in a couple of weekends. So that's exciting for the prep coverage. College coverage will be coming too. So that's, I'm pretty amped about all that, because I think the draft coverage is something that I can do better because I have the time now to do that. So really, really looking forward to that. Let's do some listener questions, because I've just talked for 15 minutes about what I'm doing, the new site, all that stuff. I don't have a firm date, honestly. I wish I did, but I want to make sure that everything is done right before we release it. And ultimately, it's going to take a little time. I mean, the goal would be like opening day, but we'll see. Like, I'm not going to rush it. I've got the skeleton outline of it. We're just working on some little things here and there to make sure the player pages are going to take a lot longer to do, because that's individual for every page, coding the page to be able to pull all the stuff. Like, that's a little tougher to do. But yeah, so I'll answer any questions you have about prospects. Okay, tomorrow we'll get into team coverage. We're going to go just team by team. We'll go in the order that I wrote them. Atlanta Braves are first. No bias there, like, not at all. But it's a team I wrote first. It's been the longest out, so it'll be a good refresher, I think, for you guys to hear about the Braves. And we'll put some film up on here. We're going to walk through some data on players. And all that good stuff. So thank you for hanging out in here, and let's answer questions. I'll scroll back up. If you're a visitor and you want to ask a question, just be sure to create an account. That benefits me in a huge way as the room grows. You see the Dynasty Dugout has 56 members at the top. Every time somebody registers an account and joins the room, that is significant for me in the growth of what we're doing here. Playback is basically a Twitch for sports. So it's really been geared for basketball. Like, it's interesting because like I can go to I can choose a broadcast of like a live game right now. I know there's nothing live NBA wise, but basically like I can click live TV at the bottom and it says like upcoming games. And I can choose to like broadcast a game. So during the season, like we can do this too with the MLB side of things. But like I can show you, let me show you this just to show like I'm also working on like I don't love the layout. I want to lay over on some of these things, which I think will be rather important. But I can kind of show you like what I think about it, because I can go to YouTube and pull this up. Let me screen share it here and just kind of show you what it looks like. We'll just pull some Junior Caminero highlights. And there's an ad for Roback, who I'm trying to get to sponsor this because I think their clothes are awesome. So I'm trying to get them to sponsor. We'll see. But yeah, so basically like, oops, let me full screen it, which I already had. Yeah, so basically like we can sit here, we can watch highlights, we can talk the games, which is huge. And during a live game, like it's literally just like I'm like broadcasting the game. Like we can bring you guys on to I look at Caminero making a play at shortstop. They say he can't be a shortstop. I said he can't be a shortstop. What is this? Realistically, I do think that he's probably a third baseman. And I saw that we had a question about the news about him. So we will talk a little bit about that. Absolutely obliterated. Just mammoth power. But yeah, so you kind of see what we can do with this. I can also use StreamYard with like some overlays and like push it out to playback too. But the benefit of using playback is like, honestly, like there's a creator fund here. And like, I'm one of their first baseball people. Pitcherless is on here and one of their other first baseball people, which is really cool. So I'm kind of honored to be a part of that. Let me see if I can find some of my like own Junior Caminero film, because like I've got some good video of him when he was down here in Greenville, whiffed by the third baseman. I don't even know who that was. I don't even know why that was a highlight, to be honest. But yeah, let me get to your questions and we'll chat. That was a big time Oppo bomb, by the way. Jeez. All right. So Brett Graham, thanks for being in here. He said, Chris, is it able to view the results of all the various mock drafts you organized? Yes. So he's have a startup dynasty soon. I would like a ballpark on each player. I participated in one mock, and I'd love to see the full results. Yeah, let me, should be in the rankings and resources tab. And if not, I will fix that and drop the link for you right here, because that is fully completed. I probably didn't promote that as good as I should have. It was just during a busy time, like a busy season. Oh yeah, it's fully up. Let me just make sure that's the right sheet, and I'll drop it over to you just so you can see everything. Yep, this is it. So I'm dropping this in the chat for you, Brett, and you can find it on the rankings and resources page too. But yeah, you just click that, and there's a spreadsheet at the bottom. It's got all the leagues. I'm hoping to get more leagues. So if you've like done a startup dynasty draft like over the last couple of months, and it's like relatively similar scoring style, like we did this like OBP, I think saves holds, but like if it's relatively close, I'd love to use it. You can download the full draft results on Fantrax, and like I honestly think like that'll make the ADP like even better. So that's obviously important in itself. So yeah, I think there's like 12 leagues there. Probably get a decent idea of where players go. But also I do think that, you know, if we get more, we get a little deeper. That's big of itself. So a lot of you commented, congrats. Thank you. Like I said, it's not without your support. And I want you to know that I absolutely appreciate that more than you know. So thank you for that. MaxSauce0824 says, who's your favorite prospect right now that people are not talking enough about? It's a really good question. I think we live in an age where I would say it's harder than ever to find like prospect sleepers, because, you know, I'm not going to like people promote a prospect and then everybody kind of jumps on that prospect. Like, it's like, oh man, like, well, Jeff Ponce like push this guy. So like everybody does that, like just pushes that guy too. And so I think it's really hard to find that guy. So I think you have to search a little bit deeper, like in the prospect side of things, like who could make a big jump. I know there's some hype on some of these guys, but I still think they're a bit undervalued. I have this tier like in the 175 to 180 range, and it's Rainer Arias, it's Robert Kalaz, the Rockies, and it's Yofre Rodriguez of the Brewers. Rainer Arias with the Giants. I failed to mention that. But all three of these guys, I think, have major breakout potential. They could soar up list significantly this year. Arias was off to a spectacular start, and he ultimately had an injury. It was never announced. It was a shoulder injury. Not good, but young kid. I think that he can bounce back from that and be fine. But Rainer Arias has as much upside as any prospect out there, in my opinion. He was one of the top guys in last year's class, and he showed that like pretty much right away. Found some good film of him from Roger Munter, who covers Giants prospects. He does that really well. So he has a lot of good film out there on YouTube. And so is some stuff on Rainer Arias. I'll throw that up. But he is somebody that I do think has the potential to really jump pretty significantly if possible. I got to find a way to make a playlist. I'm going to do that just to be more efficient with this. So it's not like he looks a little smaller in this video, which is interesting. But I believe that some other film I've seen, like he's looked really good. So that was a line out to center. There's kind of a slow-mo. You see, he's got really good lower half separation. You kind of see that. Let's play it back. I'll kind of drag through that. But he torques the lower half well and gets a lot of power. And he's so young. So I think that we probably see him begin to take off next year, as long as he's healthy. Like that's really the biggest thing. But yeah, Arias is one that's kind of in that range for me where it's like, okay, like I believe that he might be a guy that could really take off. Yofre Rodriguez, like, we've talked a little bit about him as well, but like he's a data darling where he is like, man, like his stuff is just ridiculous. And for his age and what he did, like, I think that he's one that might completely just fly up the board. And then the other one was Robert Kalaz, the Rockies, where his power metrics were absolutely insane. He was 17. I think he had like a 106 mile an hour 90th percentile, which is like already plus range. Like the MLB average is 103. So like if that tells you anything, then it's like, oh man, like this dude might just be something that takes off. And let me pull that up so I can confirm that I was not lying to you about the data, but the data was really strong. So it was like, that was like a no-brainer when you watch him. And it's like, okay, this guy's got the stuff where it's like, I really believe that this guy could take off and be a huge value. And I wrote him as my prospect breakout in the Rocky system that I published yesterday. So yeah, I mean, his 9th percentile was right at 106. Chase rate was right at MLB average, or minor league average, excuse me. And the contact rate, well, fine. Like it was like 72%, which is okay. You can live with that, especially at a young age. So the tools are there for all those guys. But if you want a little deeper, like go deeper and kind of see who I'm targeting, I think a lot of the deeper guys are probably like FYPD guys or like last year's FYPD guys that didn't take off. So like Emmanuel Bonilla is one with the Blue Jays. He's still actually, I think he just turned 18 actually, but he's got a massive frame. He's got big time raw power. And I think that he's one that's going to probably pop off this year and break out. Rafael Ramirez is another one that signed last year with Cleveland. He's got a really strong feel to hit. He's been very young for every level, and one that I just believe could really move up boards. Like you think about like Juan Brito, where he came from. Like this is what I see kind of in a young Rafael Ramirez of where he could go. I think a lot of the pitchers in this year's draft class, like a lot of those prep guys, I think people have called on to Blake Walters at this point, who should get live in Columbia pretty early in the season. I'd be surprised if they started him at the complex, but we'll see what they do there. He's one. Obviously, his teammate Hero Wyatt is a pretty big one. And the Royals, you're like, oh man, their development hasn't been good. You're right, but there's a new guard. This will be the second year of the new guard, so we'll kind of see how that goes and ultimately like how that plays out. So I would say a lot of those prep arms in this class could be ones that really soar up boards. And, Nate, Handy, and Matt, they've talked a lot about TJ Walton. He's got tools for days, and he's one that I think could really pop off and move up too. So he'll be one to kind of follow pretty closely. Braylon Morrell with Texas is huge. Another one that I've kind of come around to a little more this offseason is Thyron Lorenzo. And, I'm probably a little bit late on him. There are some concerning things in the profile, but his contact skills are questionable at best, but the power's there and the quality of contact is really good. We'll just need him to make more consistent contact. So there's some guys that I'd watch pretty closely and see like kind of where they go. There's a duo of Dodgers prospects, Oswaldo Osorio and Samuel Munoz, who aren't really talked about probably as much as they should, but those are guys that 18 and 19 respectively, I think could really move up the board. So, once you get a little deeper, it's like, it's just a big tier guy. So like, I wonder if I could label the spreadsheet with like, upside kind of play, that kind of thing. So, whether it's like, okay, like if I want to take an upside shot, like here's the guy. I saw another pitcher that I do like a lot, and that's Jeter Martinez with the Mariners. I think that he showed a lot of really good things last year. It's a young arm. If I'm not mistaken, I think he started the year as a 16-year-old. Maybe not, but he was a young 17. He may have just turned 17 when the DSL started. But yeah, Jeter Martinez is a fun one. The Mariners have done their job of developing pitchers well, and he's one that I think could really move up boards. So that's those are ones I don't know. Like, are they not being talked enough about? In my books, probably not. So those are ones that I would look to invest in. Max also asked when you start setting up the podcast, what's it going to be called? It'll just be called the Dynasty Dugout Show. So you can find that under the Dynasty Dugout umbrella. Obviously, I want to do everything under my brand and kind of promote that. So yeah, it'll be under that brand there. The FYPD player pages have been super helpful. I appreciate that. Those a lot of work went into those. I thought that more than anything, there's so many rankings, but like write-ups are just super helpful. And so if you can read the write-up, you can read the reports, you can get the data. Like, I think that's a huge, huge step. So just a reminder, if you're visiting in the room, you can ultimately sign up, ask questions in the chat. It enables you to do a lot of cool things in the thing, and it benefits me too. So I would appreciate if you're visiting the room, if you don't mind just putting your email. It's free. Everything's free in here. So that's a really cool thing. So how long are the daily streams going to be? Skipped over one. We'll get back to that in a second. Beck asked, anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. It depends on how much content we have to cover each day. I'm not going to be set to a time, but also like I want to make sure it's at least 30 minutes, not shorter. Like I feel like that's a pretty short time. So 30 to an hour pretty much every day. We'll be on here and chat with you guys. So I appreciate you being here. When you talk about coding, I'm sorry, I skipped the other one again. We'll go back to Junior Camino in just a second. When you talk about coding, are you doing the coding yourself, or are you do you outsource it? I've actually learned a decent bit this past year in coding. I do have a buddy who is helping me out. He knows nothing about baseball, which is interesting. So I've had to teach him a lot about baseball, but he knows coding very well. And so that's how he was able to help me to where we can have our own like database. We were doing it. We were sourcing. I was paying someone so you could have access to that minor league data. But now, like, we literally have our own. So, like, that's cool. And so I'm learning a little bit, and that's the goal, is to just get better at that every day. Coding's not easy, but I'm at least trying. So, yeah, that's a tough one. This is a fun question. What do you think about the Tampa Bay Times coming out with the Junior Caminero news saying that basically he may not start the year in the majors. I'm kind of sad to say, like, I'm not shocked why they would have brought him up the end of last year to not start him in the majors is kind of interesting. And I don't have a great answer to that. Logically, it makes sense to put him in the bigs. But on the flip side, logically, he never spent any time in AAA. Maybe they want to work on development. Maybe this whole Wander thing makes them want to work him out at shortstop some, and he would need a lot more work there. I think he's a third baseman long term. He could absolutely mash in spring training and earn a spot. We saw that happen last year with Jordan Walker. I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but I mean, for them to come out and say that it's unlikely, quote, unlikely that Junior Caminero begins the year on the opening day roster, I think is pretty telling that, okay, the plan currently is from the start in the minors. I mean, I don't think it affects his stock. If anything, it might help his dynasty stock. I think that this is a pretty good, like, buying opportunity because if people are like, oh man, like he's not going to start the year on the team, you could buy him. And the other side is like, if he debuted with the team and he struggled for a couple months and got demoted, his stock would plummet a little bit. Right or wrong, like that's how people play Dynasty. They ultimately like, okay, 2 months, that's enough. That's absurd, but that's how people play the game. So I don't think that it like kills the value of Caminero at all. I actually think that it may benefit it in a way because you can buy him right now, maybe at 95 cents on the dollar. It may not be a huge drop, but it's cheaper than it might have been. So I'm kind of in on that. Camaro's got some of the best power in all of baseball. He makes good contact. Like, it's not like an empty power profile. I mean, the EVs are top of all baseball players, MLB included, like top 5 EVs, which is absolutely nuts, but that's what he does. He had, I think, 71% overall, 80% zone last year. Not plus contact, but you don't really need it to be either. So like that's that in itself it's pretty solid. So yeah, I'm still investing in Caminero in Dynasty. Like I said, I think that it's probably a good time to invest personally. If somebody rosters him and wants to trade him pretty cheap, I mean, I'm not saying cheap, like I said, 95 cents on the dollar, but yeah, I'm all about that. So yeah, Caminero, unlikely to start the year in the majors. Probably in AAA for a month or two. He's going to demolish it. He's got nothing left to prove. I mean, he's special. There's nothing else to say. So yeah, I mean, it's tough. I wish he'd start in the majors, but it is what it is. So G-Rex said, I'm excited about the Brewers lineup this season with Churio, Ortiz, Frelick in the lineup together now. Do you think Tyler Black joins the group sooner than later? I'm super high on him in OBP format. I think he could be a consistent under the radar piece in their lineup. I do too. I think that he really plays up in that OBP format. And you're right. I mean, like, the lineup is much more crowded than it was a couple of weeks ago. I mean, they came out, they made a move, and now it's like, okay, where do these guys fit? And that's been like the number one question is like, where does Tyler Black fit in? He looked ready. He looked like he'd come up, and with a good spring training, probably break camp with the team. Right now, you're looking at a lineup that, according to Roster Resource, with Yelich at DH, not even in the field, William Contreras, Sal Frelick in right, Rhys Hoskins, obviously a new addition at first base. That was a spot where Black could have filled. Willie Adames is still at short. And honestly, I still think that Adames will probably move. Like, if I had to guess, like, Adames is traded. We'll see. It just seems like it doesn't make sense for them to keep him at this point. But then we look at like Garrett Mitchell in the outfield, Jackson Churio, like they gave him the extension that he's going to play. You don't give that guy that extension and not start him in the majors and play him every day. Bryce Terang is where it gets interesting. I still feel like that Bryce Terang provides enough value to this team where he likely does play, at least in a strong side platoon. I don't see why he doesn't play every day. His versatility is nice. I mean, we've seen him be able to handle a couple of spots in the past. Last year was mostly second base, played a little short, but the middle infield, like he was predominantly a shortstop coming up. So he's got the versatility. Like if Adames is traded, like you could see him potentially slot over. I'm not sure that's what they want to do, but Joey Ortiz is also a really strong glove in the field. I think that's an underrated aspect of Ortiz is that he's really, really good in the field. And right now he's projected to be at third base, which is pretty interesting. But Ortiz bat, really, really solid. The glove, certainly above average. Got a good arm over there at short. I mean, to me, Ortiz is like 55s across the board, which I think is pretty impressive. I've said that for a long time. Just the data's always been really good. Got to see him this past year when Norfolk was down here in Gwinnett for several games. He had a massive tank off Max Fried. Max Fried was rehabbing in Gwinnett that game, and Ortiz took him way, way deep. So, I mean, you don't trade for Ortiz and not start him. So I would say that, like, really the only open spot potentially would be if you do trade Willy Adames right now, which I'm not going to rule out. I think it's a real possibility that they do trade Adames and that we see that opening. Whether that be Ortiz move over to short, Tyler Black could play third base. Black's also been working in the outfield some, which is interesting because they do have some depth in the outfield. I mean, right now you've got Yelich at DH and Joey Weimer on the bench, and Joey Weimer's actually a really good glove. So, you know, that's pretty interesting. But Black's speed is really his biggest selling point. He's not really a good glove anywhere. And does that lead to a DH role eventually? I don't know. I do think that at the moment, Black is probably slated to spend a good bit of time in AAA. So that would be at least to start the season, probably a month or two. I mean, he's got 39 games under his belt in AAA. I wouldn't be shocked if he's back there and spending some time there, working especially on the glove. That's really a big thing. Now 23 years old. I think that he probably gets a crack. I think Black probably gets 300 plate appearances in the majors this year. So enough time to make an impact, but it may be second half impact. I would at least consider that. So Beck says, yeah, game watch parties would be sweet. I agree, especially if you could stream a minor league game in here. I don't know the copyright for that. Like I know that like they do licensing with like NBA TV or whatever it is and MLB TV. If I could find a way to do it like with minor league too, like, you know, that's right. That's our jam. So love to watch some minor league games with you guys. Skylar Nelson 707, my man, says a scouting 101 topic here or an article series would be cool. Yeah, I think that's something, especially that, you know, I've grown a lot in. I'm not a scout, but I've learned a lot of scouting tendencies and ways to analyze players from being at the ballpark and such. There is an episode I need to find. It's somewhere on the Dynasty Dugout where Jeff came on with me, Jeff Ponce, and we did talk about that. We talked about scouting and that sort of thing. Yeah, I'll drop it in the chat over here. The episode title is literally how Jeff Ponce scouts prospects, and we just talked all things scouting. And, you know, Jeff's a great resource, obviously. Jeff's been a good friend to me. Jeff's helped me grow tremendously, and I'm really thankful for Jeff and how he has just helped me out, how he's grown. Obviously, at Baseball America, that's amazing. So, you know, I think that you know, Jeff's a great resource too. So, yeah, drop that in there if you want to listen to it. Definitely do more with that. I think that'd be really great. So, yeah, we see your preseason top 500 prospect write-up rankings for gold. Appreciate that. That was like 3 months of work to do the top 1,000 and all the team write-ups. Like, it's a lot of work, but it was rewarding for me. Maybe I should have, Beck mentioned publishing his. Maybe I should publish all of ours just to have as a keepsake. I think that would be pretty cool. Got some, I love Yofree and Kalaz as well. Yep, for sure. We've got another question. The org is high on Arias. Yeah, Skylar's a Giants fan, so he's well connected there. Project G Wood, He says, does your willingness to draft a guy like Skeens with your first round FYPD change as the league size gets smaller? Yeah, I do think in a general sense that it does, because the smaller the league, the more likely you are to be able to pick up players. So pitchers are risky. Pitchers pop up every year too. And while pitchers with Skeens talents don't grow on trees, I still think that you can recycle guys and find those prospects that you should pick up. And I think that the shallower the league, it is all about upside, but the upside I'm taking is with bats. It's not with arms as much, because if you trust your ability to find those pop-up pitching prospects, which happen every year. I mean, like, if we want to just look down the pitching prospect, if I like filter my prospect rankings by just pitchers, like a lot of these guys are pop-ups. Like, not all of them were top FYPD guys that you had to draft and spend capital on. And this year, I think probably more so, like if you look at the crop this year, we did have a big crop of pitchers that graduated last year. But think about this. I mean, think about the guys that weren't huge FYPD guys. I mean, Bobby Miller was, I mean, he was a back end first round, but he wasn't a hyped FYPD guy. Gavin Williams, I mean, he was, but like he didn't cost you a fortune. Tanner Bybee was a huge pop-up. Like a lot of those guys that came up, AJ Smith-Shawver, he's still in the ranking. So these guys you're able to find these pitchers. And even like Robbie Snelling wouldn't have cost you much at all. And probably in a shallow league, he was probably available. But like Jacob Mizorowski, he began getting hype preseason. He probably got drafted. Like Drew Thorpe. I mean, I'm not saying he's a pop-up, but Drew Thorpe wasn't like a huge FYPD guy. Chase Hampton was not either. He was certainly a pop-up this year. Bubba Chandler's kind of rode like a roller coaster, where it's like, oh, this two-way guy. He was going to be a quarterback at Clemson. Like, he's a stud. Then he went to the Valley. You could have picked him up. He's a stud. Jared Jones is another one that could have picked up probably. Mason Miller could have picked up. Noah Schultz, maybe in a more shallow league, you could have picked up. Takoa Roby, you could have picked up. Will Warren, you definitely could have picked up Will Warren. Gavin Stone at one point, you could have picked up. David Festa, Jairo Iriarte. So like over half of my top 100 pitching prospects are like guys that you could just picked up off the wire. So like that just tells me like in the shallower league, you just recycle and you find those guys that are popping off. And I think that you take that shot in the hitter department. So like if you have a pick, obviously if Skeens falls, you take him as talent levels there. But also if you have an early pick, like I'm investing in a hitter, unless it's Yamamoto and you need an arm and you're competing. But like I'm investing in a Langford, I'm investing in a Cruz bounce back. I still believe a lot in Dylan Cruz. So I'm investing in those guys specifically. So if you can, like, I hope that makes sense. But yeah, the shallower the league, the more pure upside shots you take. And I prefer to build around hitters because pitchers do pop up much more often. This is a fun one. What do you think about Joindry Vargas? Well, I'm glad you asked, because Joindry Vargas is one of my favorite prospects and has been for some time, dating back to last year. He was my number 2 international guy, if I'm not mistaken. He was at least top 3. Like that frame just so intrigued me. The swing, the power potential was like, golly, this guy, he wasn't a huge signing, $2.08 million. But when you get an athlete that's 6'4", 175, and he's going to the Dodgers org, like that's pretty significant. So he hit 7 home runs, had 20 extra base hits, 208 plate appearances last year, /328, 423, 529. So really good stuff. The athleticism showed. He stole 19 bases. So still good power, speed. That may tail off if he fills out the frame some. But I mean, to me, he has really strong plate discipline. He makes more than enough contact. And one of the lowest chase rates in the DSL. He walked 30 times, struck out just 31 times. When he's not walking, puts a ton of balls in play. And ultimately, I just believe that this guy could be a 25 home run bat, steal you 10 to 15 bags, and be a really solid average OBP type guy. I mean, 300's a lofty expectation for somebody that's his age. It's 18. It's only been the DSL, but what do the Dodgers do with him? We've seen them be aggressive. They skipped Josue De Paula from the complex and straight to full season. And while I think most are down De Paula, like I'm not at all. I thought De Paula, what he did was pretty solid, and there's still a lot to like about De Paula. I don't know if Vargas starts at the complex or in Rancho Cucamonga. We shall see, but yeah, I'm a big Joe Andrew Vargas fan. Heavy invest for me in a dynasty league. So we've got some other comments like the upside high floor would be interesting on the rankings. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty easy to do if I can just go through the spreadsheet, kind of add that in. Jeff Long added some Jeter Martinez context there, turns 18 later this week. So yeah, he began last year as a 17-year-old and then turned 18 just before the season started. So he was a young 18 during the season. Prospect Times, who I really loved their work. So this is good info here. Thank you. Check out their work. Assuming this is the Prospect Times that does Rangers coverage. So if you want good Rangers coverage, certainly check that out. It's pull up the Twitter handle, the X handle, whatever it is, so we know for sure, because I do want to certainly give a shout out. It's at Prospect Times. Really good Rangers coverage out there. So I would say if you want inside to Rangers info, go there. Check out the prospecttimes.com and Prospect Times on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. So Michael said, can I join? I'm not sure what you mean. Anybody can join. If you're talking about the room, anybody can join in here. If there's something else you'd like to join, let me know. If it's a Dynasty Dugout, we'd love to have you. So that would be awesome. Whatever, I'm happy to help however I can there. Beck adds in, should be plenty of at-bats between first, second, third base for Black at some point, especially if Adames is traded and Ortiz slides to shortstop. Yeah, Terang and Monasterio are not blocking Black at all. Yeah, Beck's your resident Brewers guy. Hoping we'll get Beck out to some. He's also close to Twins minor league, so hopefully get him out there this year. Get us some good film for some AAA guys, which is would be awesome. AAA, I've got a little bit near me. Got Gwinnett, got Charlotte. I've got a lot of low A, high A, and no double A, unfortunately. But Columbus will be my new closest home, but that's still a 3-hour ride, so we'll have to make a trip once a year for double A. But I get kind of everybody else. But yeah, the rest of the country, like if you guys ever want to go out to games, like I can try my best to get you some credentials. Like, hey, you're going to shoot some stuff for Dynasty Dugout, and hopefully we can get you in. That'd be pretty awesome. Skylar says Adames sounds like a great fit for the Giants. Yeah, I mean, they need somebody, I believe. So, yeah, that would be interesting. I'm not really sure what that trade would look like, but yeah, I'd be curious to see what they could come up with. Reducing Juice, our man from First Pitch, Arizona. He says, no question, just cheese. He is the number one cheese fan. If you don't know who Cheese is, that's Damiano Palmigiani from the Toronto Blue Jays. Something happened at one of the games, and one of the AFL games, and one of the announcers accidentally pronounced his name Parmesan for some reason, or Parmigiani or something like that. And apparently the whole dugout just shouted cheese after they said that. So it kind of stuck, and like a lot of people were just like big cheese fans that week when we were out there at the AFL. So that would be a lot of fun. So I got a couple more questions that I will hit. As an Astros fan, this is GREX12. As an Astros fan, I saw a few mock drafts where Walker Martin was supposed to end up the 28th pick. Yeah, Martin was honestly, that was a perfect fit. Like the Astros, analytical side, but Bryce Matthews was also an analytical side. I'm not overly worried about Matthews' debut, and I'll tell you why in just a second. I've always liked Walker Martin more. That hasn't really wavered or changed. We didn't see Walker Martin debut, but he's still somebody that I really believe in. His athleticism is off the charts, for sure. He was, if you go to Loden Sports, Matt Pajak does athletic testing on athletes, baseball, football, and they grade him on a scale of 10, and Martin literally broke the scale. Martin was a 3-time state champion quarterback at his high school. He hit 20 home runs and hit 647 his senior year. And I know the competition, baseball, Colorado, probably not as good, probably blasted a lot of home runs because the environment, but impressive nonetheless, considering he hit 20 home runs in 28 games. And he was the captain of the basketball team for 2 years. So that just shows you how athletic Martin is. I think that him coming in and fully focusing on baseball will be huge for him. And I think he's one that could really take off. So yeah, I mean, naturally, like, it's going to be like, of course, I'm a Walker Martin fan. I have been for like some time, but that's not to say like I'm out on Bryce Matthews, because I still believe that Bryce Matthews has plenty to like in the tank. What Matthews did, and I'll pull up his college data. While the pro data not necessarily as impressive, but Matthews last season at Nebraska, he had chase rate below 20%. That's important. Contact rate of 75%. Zone contact of 80%. Like, those are, you want to see him a little higher in college, but they're fine. His WOBA was 517, which is pretty good. The 9th percentile EV is what jumps off the page, 109.4. That's, I always look at numbers like this and I'm like, okay, like, is it legit? We see instances where, like, and I hate to say it, but there's guys that cheat in college baseball with a metal bat. I mean, it happens more often than we're willing to admit. I'm not questioning Bryce Matthews 109, 90th, but number jumps off like that when you have an 88.7 average. Like, dang, okay, that's pretty high. So it's something to keep in mind and watch, at least, because there have been other guys that roll bats. They see the EVs go berserk and their stocks go crazy too in the process. So it's something just to keep an eye on. But the hard hit rate was 50%. I still believe in this player. He's a good athlete as well. Like, Matthews was a stud football player also, and he's one that I think could probably still be really solid. He fits the Astros MO to a T, like analytical darling. Like, that's what the Astros do. The Astros, I don't know if they still do, but they, for a long time, they signed international guys strictly off of TrackMan data. They never sent guys to watch them. They just love their data. It's worked for them. They've built a elite dynasty, and it's worked. So, Project G Wood responded back to the scheme saying, my staff hasn't really been built in prospect drafts. So yeah, I mean, however you want to build, I think you can. Prospect Times comments Langford is the one to get for sure. Yeah. I'm curious if you got to see Langford any last year. He was not around my area long enough. Like, he was going so quick. And I mean, Texas does have affiliates over here, and I'll have a new Texas affiliate next year. I hate it for Down East. The Kinston community is a small community that's really passionate about the Down East Wood Ducks, but they're moving to Spartanburg, which is about 25 minutes from me in 2025, brand new stadium and complex, which is pretty cool. So I'll have Hickory and I don't know what they'll be called, Spartanburg, the Wood Ducks, but the Rangers single A, which is going to be a lot of fun too. So can't really wait for that. But I am very excited about the season to start. If you cannot tell, Skylar mentioned Yoendry Sanchez as a player that excites him as a Giants fan. Probably not an invest now, he asked. Honestly, like, I haven't done a ton of digging into Sanchez. And that's another thing, guys. I'm always going to be honest with you. Like there's times when I'm not fully aware of, like, guys, like, weigh in on him or anything. And this is a case where I'm not comfortable enough to tell you, like, I don't know if he should excite you and should you invest or not. But it's somebody I'll look into. And this was the case, like, last year with Jefferson Rojas. It was like, okay, this guy is skipping the complex. And it was like, yeah, I'm not really familiar with this guy because he didn't do a lot in the DSL, but I was like, I'll figure it out and get back to you. Got to see him a lot. He's with Myrtle Beach. So saw him. I actually have a trip to Myrtle Beach coming up in mid-April. So I have a week-long coverage down there for Myrtle Beach. He'll be with Kannapolis. I'm hoping Noah Schultz is still there at this point. But yeah, I'd watch Yoendry Sanchez. I'll check out a little more and see. I know he was last year's international class, but haven't seen too much on him personally. Beck says he's jumping on with Joe Arico, who's awesome as well, tomorrow to do the Brewers fantasy preview. You should certainly check that out. I think his podcast is Fantasy or MLB Fantasy Today. Maybe I've jumbled the words, and I apologize, Joe, if I did. Reducing juice is, yeah, you got a Cactus League, just saying. So, yeah, anytime you want to go to the Cactus League, I got you, man. Like, that would be awesome to have some coverage there, get some film there. That would be fantastic. G-Rex said, I'm very glad that Lindsey Crosby of Locked On Prospects recommended you for Dynasty. Absolutely. Lindsey's a great guy. He's a great friend. And he does a great show every day. And I hope that, Lindsey has done one of the only daily minor league shows for a long time. And I hope that this is like we can join and work together, because I do think that growing the passion and love for minor league baseball is huge. And Lindsey does an awesome job. You should check out his show every morning, Locked On MLB Podcast, or Locked On MLB Prospects Podcast. Yeah, let me make sure I say that right. So check that out. Follow Lindsey's work, because he does really good stuff. He's the play-by-play announcer for Auburn, so you get some good looks at SEC guys too, which is really cool. And I'd highly recommend Lindsey's work as well. Skylar mentioned, I have the Aqua Socks and the Rainiers. Happy to go get video. Couture, I hope I'm saying that right. Fred Nats in Salem. Yeah, that's a pretty good area, actually, of some pretty good pipelines. I know they've moved the guys that are pretty talented pretty quickly, but I do think that Salem's going to have some good talent to start the year. Obviously, having priority coverage with like the Red Sox right here in Greenville, like I think that Salem's going to start off the year pretty good. Greenville's going to start the year pretty weak, if I'm right on the predictions of kind of how they shake things out. But yeah, Salem's fun. Fred Nats are a lot of fun. I saw them last year. Saw them with Yarlin Susana. They had Elijah Green, which disappointment. Never got to see Dylan Cruz. He wasn't there long, and they're never down this way. So, that anybody else seeing Zach Beach from Coastal going 450, 110 EV? Dude, Coastal always produces some studs. They produced Eric Brown Jr. They won a College World Series, which is crazy to think, but Coastal's a legit program, and they pump out some really good talent. So they always have some draft guys to watch out for every single year. So yeah, Zach Beach, certainly one to watch. I have not seen that bomb, but I'm going to find it right now, because that's some mammoth shot. If he, yep, here we go. Jeez, yeah. They always have guys that have like really not traditional swings. I'll pull it up and show you guys, actually. And his swing's interesting. His setup and everything, pretty interesting to watch. But yeah, let me just share this, because this is a big boy. Oh, you play with him in high school. That's awesome, man. That's it's really cool. So I'm sure that's really neat to know somebody like that and see them have success is huge. Yeah, here it is. It says 401. There may be another one I'm missing, but I saw 110 EV, and that's smoked. And a nice little drop, not a bat flip, but a nice little drop. So that's huge. So I love to see that. That's we've hit the 2:00 mark. Thanks for hanging around today. I will wrap up with a couple of questions. We have, I know there's a couple on here. Jeff Long adds Shaniel Arias, kind of my dark horse to pull a Henry Lane. Yeah, I think Arias did some really good things in the DSL last year to keep a really close eye on. And Yankees have had really good development. I think that ultimately he's one that could pop off, and the Yanks develop the pitchers and they trade them. It's interesting, but it's how it's worked. Prospect Times, very impressed with Langford. Get some photos in Frisco this season. Yeah, and I'm curious, pop it in the chat. Do you think he starts? Do you have any intel of whether he starts the year in the majors or not? Because I'm curious if that's actually like on the table or not. I know that obviously Langford was on the taxi squad during the World Series, and they were ready to call him up when Adelise got injured. Decided not to go that route, but I think they show pretty good value in Langford and think that he's pretty ready. But I could go 50-50 whether he starts the year in Texas or in Frisco. If you have any insight, feel free to drop it. I think that'd be really helpful. EVB, very loyal member of the Discord, always chiming in with chat. Been struggling with Matt Shaw and saw that Beck included him in his Q&A article. What do you say to someone hesitant to take him early in an FYPD guy or FYPD over guys with seemingly higher upside? Who would you say like has more upside, that like maybe a Max Clark or a Colt Emerson per se? I don't have a problem like going that direction. I just think Matt Shaw is like, does everything really, really well. And last year we saw that. I mean, absurd contact skills at Maryland. 83% contact, 88.5% zone, 20% chase. So all those numbers show like plus plate discipline, plus contact at least. He had a 91 mile an hour average EV, which is huge. He had a 107 mile an hour 90th, which with wood, that's going to drop a little bit, but the numbers were still really good. Even if it drops 3 miles an hour, like he's still looking at least league average power with development still to come. So I think that Shaw just does a lot of things well. And that's not even factoring like he's going to run. Like he's not the fastest guy, but man, he's the most efficient base stealer. If I'm not mistaken, I need to look and confirm. I think he was only caught like one time in his collegiate career. I'm going to look and confirm this because it was something like really crazy. Okay, maybe I'm thinking of somebody else, but Shaw was successful 37 times and caught 9 times. I don't know who I'm thinking of, but this past year, it was 18 steals, 1 caught stealing. In the Cape Cod League the summer before, it was 21 stolen bases and 3 caught stealing. So, really good rates there. So, like Shaw to me looks like a 2020 type bat, and he's going to give you a really high floor. He's going to get on base a ton. He's going to have a lot of run and RBI opportunities. So, I'm a big Matt Shaw fan. I understand taking more upside on him. Like, if you want to go that route, like, no, that's more than fine. So, I can argue that all those guys are in the same tier, and I do believe that he's being fast tracked to the majors. He's going to be up soon, which I think has a lot of value. So, if you want to take Max Clark, I can go with that. If you want to take Colt Emerson, like I don't have a problem with that. I saw this kind of the same tier. So, Shaw just is the safer play in my opinion, and it's going to provide value. So, all right, guys. Well, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you all for joining. Thanks for all the comments. Tomorrow, it's Atlanta Braves prospects. I'll have a lot of film to break down. I'll have data to break down. The Brave system is better than people give it credit for. I know everybody's going to rank it last, but it is it's going to be a better one than you think because they've got some pitchers that are still really good. And so thank you for being a part. Part of my mission with doing this full time is just want to spread kindness, spread love, be an inspiration to others. So do that as well. Spread kindness and show love in everything you do. See you guys. Have a good one.